right, well, having gotten that out of the way, let's move on to today's horrifying monstrosity here at the Creepy Cheapies workshop. Although I'm still in the library, I'm not really literally in the workshop. Should I be doing these from the actual workshop? Probably not, because it's such a mess. You know, I would be in shame and disgrace to have you see how big of a mess the workshop area is, but I don't know. If you come over and clean it up for me sometime, maybe we could shoot some. Anyway, you know, most of the heavy hitters in the mask world, which is to say the most popular masks out there, traditionally have been movie-based, such as Michael Myers, Jason, Freddy, Frankenstein, Wolfman, Mummy, Creature from the Black Lagoon. Those are the most popular masks, but once in a while there is a generic, original, non-movie themed monster mask that sort of transcends its origin as an original and becomes super popular. The Be Something Fang Face mask was one such, but today's horrible monstrosity from Don Post Studios. I said Don Post, okay, that's better, yes. The Don Post Studios mask for today first came out way back in the year 1990. Now, most of these masks back then were only in production for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, but this guy was so popular, he was still being produced as late as 2002, and then in 2003 they finally discontinued him. But that's a long time in mask years to go from 1990 to 2002. Who am I talking about? Yeah, it's this nice all-purpose dead guy right here called, oh dear, I kid you not, called, yeah, Sewage. I know, Sewage? Really? Don Post mask naming people of 1990? Seriously? Sewage? Okay, well, this is him. And he looked very much the same over all those years. Sewage, though. To me, that sounds like it would be kind of a slime monster, you know? Kind of a, not just a corpse. This looks like a guy that came up out of a cemetery ground, out of his grave, but he doesn't look like a sewage monster. I would think they would be sort of slimy, and, well, I've done some drawings that look like they would be better called Sewage than this guy for monsters. But anyway, that's what they called him. And I know, that's gotta be one of the worst names for a mask, apart from, okay, here's where you, the home viewer, can play along. Use this brief pause in the proceedings to make up your own bad, inappropriate, but witty and amusing dumb name for a mask. You got one? Okay then, on we go. Anyway, his real name is actually Sewage. That's S-E-W, as in what you do with a needle and thread, followed by A-G-E, which is what you do every second of every minute of every hour of every day of every week of every year throughout life on Earth, even when you're not thinking about it. Moving on. This guy was typically this brownish color, just sort of a gray brown, and as with this copy, does not have really any detail other than some black. It sounds funny to say a black wash, but a black, well, it's black in the crevices and cracks and wrinkles, and available for many years there from Don Post. And then, before Don Post was unceremoniously bought and killed and shut down and put out of business in 2012, Sewage was reintroduced at the mandate of the people. He was so popular that he came back in 2011 and even made the cover of the catalog. You were a cover ghoul. Yeah. Now, and then 2012, he would have been in production, but that was the year Don Post went out of business. Yeah. So no more Sewage. But in more recent times, he was reissued by Trick or Treat Studios. Yeah, no, that's the wrong logo. Trick or Treat. Yeah. Trick or Treat Studios reissued him as part of their Don Post retro Don Post mask line, and it is from the same original sculpture and molds as the original. And this is kind of cool, they're even having them produced at the same plant in China that made the ones for Don Post Studios all those years ago. As you can see, Mr. Sewage doesn't have much hair. He has just a little bit, and it's just stuck on in one spot. I don't think anybody's happy with that. This one, I've done my best to stretch it out or shape a bit, but a lot of the copies of this mask suffer from being stored scrunched up in the back half. When you pop it out, looks a bit like a big brown paper wad. It's all crunched up. So, you know, you might want to take the blow dryer to it, that sort of thing. Overstuff it for a little while and leave it overstuffed till you can stretch that back of the head out of shape, as I have managed to do with this copy. And another fascinating tidbit of trivia about Sewage the zombie is that although he always had this same look, the brown with just a little bit of gray hair, there was actually another version offered simultaneously in 1999. They came out with another version of him that was green and had white hair on the sides, thicker and shorter, not this silly hair. And he was called, you're not gonna like this, he was called Stench. I know, we're not gonna get away from this whole thing about you smelling bad, are we? But the thing is, hey, you are proof, not living proof, but proof that you can stink real bad and still be enormously popular with the masses. Yeah, you're right. I guess present day TV and movies have already proven that, but still, take the credit where you can get it, you know. I never even saw a Stench mask in person, only in the catalog. I don't know anybody that had one. Well, I've been around people who have a Stench, but not the green mask. Yeah, anyway, he's getting sick and tired of these jokes about smelling bad and everything. He says enough to give a guy a complex. Well, you know what I say, if they give you a complex, rent out the apartments in it. Sure. I mean, you could be landlord and manager of the world's first strictly zombie-themed apartment block. How about that? You know, hot and cold running spinal fluid or whatever you guys drink these days. You know, scare conditioning in all the apartments. Sure, you could have the first zombie apartment building. Sunday nights you could have bingo. Bingo, he's a clown that I know that rents himself out. Well, you're right, he'd probably get eaten. Maybe not a good idea to have bingo, but anyway. This guy never did have a very complicated paint job, and it actually works. It looks okay as is. A lot of the catalog photos had way more hair than this and had it coming down over the front, more like that, although I never understood why they did that. Some of the catalog photos from Don Post back in the day had his hair hanging down over the face. Did they do that maybe to be suggestive of something coming up out of water, like rising up out of? Did they do it to make him look more like a ghost with sort of indistinct features? Maybe. Did they do it to obscure his strong resemblance to the HBO Crypt Keeper? Who can say? But anyway, sometimes he had hair right over his face, which would make it hard to see where you're going and who you're biting into or scaring. But he's a good mask because he's got that instant, immediate impact. As soon as you see him, you're like, ah, zombie, you know, because he's kind of skull-like. And he's also one of those monsters who looks like he enjoys his work, which is something I always like in a monster, is one who throws himself into his work, but doesn't throw himself into the sewage necessarily. Anyway, I wondered what it would look like to take one of these and give it a little more deluxe paint job. Now, I wanted it to look different from the Trick or Treat edition that's out, so I painted it a little differently. This one was painted by me, and I used an airbrush instead of the non-airbrush, which was used on this. It bothered me that those teeth look kind of randomly swirly with brown and yellow, like the brown stuff makes it look like some sort of creamy chocolate candy, because the brown stuff isn't in any particular pattern. It's just smudged on here and there. So I airbrushed, okay, I didn't airbrush the teeth, I painted the teeth with a little brush, but I airbrushed the brown along the gum line on this one. And as you can see, I tried to make him different. He's got a little, don't know if this will show up on your monitor, Lizard, but he's got a little bit of green here and there. It's kind of irregular, it's not symmetrical, just here and there. I gave him a little bit of green to make him look extra moldy, like a potato that's gone off, you know, and a little bit of browner brown than the regular brown, and a little bit of a kind of a dark maroon reddish purpley color. And I put them on with an airbrush just because I wanted it to be different from the way they normally look. So I gave this one the more, you know, more loving and detailed and fancy schmancy paint job. And as far as the hair, I pulled off the silly little chunk of hair and turned Laura loose with him and said, just whatever you think would look good, just stick some hair on there. And I wasn't specific, and she came up with this. As you can see, she stuck it on there very thinly and carefully so that when he moves, you can see scalp through there. You can see how thin it is. But she put a little toward the front, and that middle point just kind of in honor of the original design of old Mr. Sewage. So there's one potential way you could fix him up to make him a little more distinctive. Yeah, I know I said stink again. No, that wasn't. That was distinctive. That's a whole different, never mind. Anyway, a little bit of green, a little bit of purple, and I gave him a little bit of a highlight color that's got just a drop of yellow in it, here and there on his brows and cheekbones. And you might want to do something similar if you would like a Sewage who's a little more deluxe, or if you have a stench mask, send me a picture, because I've never seen it. And by the way, a minute ago when I told you to come up with a bad name for mask that's worse than Sewage, post those in the comments if you did think of one. But Sewage right there. And then I have a couple more things to say about this guy. One of which is, well, you see, wonder where that mask is. Hang on, I'll have to go get it.
Today's episode brought to you by new Extra Strength Red Velvet Cake Yogurt from the makers of Red Velvet Cake Yogurt Ice Cream, from the makers of Red Velvet Cake Yogurt Ice Cream Cereal, from the makers of Red Velvet Cake Yogurt Ice Cream Cereal Toothpaste, from the makers of Red Velvet Cake Yogurt Ice Cream Cereal Toothpaste Salad Dressing, from the makers of Red Velvet Cake Yogurt Ice Cream Cereal Toothpaste Salad Dressing Coffee.
Okay, and we're back from our break. The other mask I was going to mention that had to do with Sewage is in fact a real cheapie, a mass-produced, I forget, probably made in China or Malaysia or Birkanistan, someplace like that. I got my hands on a bunch of really low-end masks that are not very nicely finished and are just meant to be spooky Halloween things and aren't meant to be collector's items. I like to get hold of those and work on them a little and see what could this thing look like and how could it go from kind of unfinished looking hasty pudding to something that's looks more like a collectible work of art. So I got my hands on this white ghost mask that didn't really have any paint on it other than it had some black in the mouth and some white on the teeth, but it was pretty much just white all over and didn't have any shading or anything. And I thought, well, let's take some black paint and go in there and see what he would look like, this ghost. Now he had this black fur piece on the back, but I was halfway through applying paint to him before it even hit me. Well, he didn't hit me, but nightmares in a damaged brain, I guess. I don't know why I didn't see it immediately, but it was quite a while before I even realized I was basically painting a Don Post Sewage, because that's clearly what they do their inspiration from. I think this is a Fun World, but it doesn't actually say. But it's just real cheapy, and you can't notice really how much it looks like this guy when you see it without the added paint detail. And the only color I added was black, by the way, because I thought he's a ghost. Let's keep him with the black and white, like the concept they had in mind. And yes, he has a fur back half, and the rubber stops right there, but he's just a really cheapy, mass-produced thing. But I thought he could look kind of cool with a little love, right? Sure. And then one more thing about Sewage, the mask, not the substance. Pardon me, Herbert, if I could just, I have a place to put him, but he's a little more out of the way. I was very fortunate in that a really good friend of mine gave me, or as some of you people say these days, even though it sounds dumb, gifted me, a great looking blank, unpainted casting, a raw casting of the Don Post Sewage from the original master mold, which means it's a little bigger, has a little more to it, and it's a beautifully cast. It's a nice thick one, and thank you very much to that friend who gave me or gifted me that great copy of old Sewage. And I wanted to show you what I did with that one, because I didn't have one of these around at the time, but it wouldn't have mattered. I just thought I wanted to do whatever I wanted to do with him and make him look like a cool zombie. So I have this big heavy one here. If I can get him up here on the there we go. Now I'm going to plug him in, because I stuck little LED lights in the eyes, and you can get LED lights online to put in your masks. My favorite is to get the kind that have this little thing on the back, you probably can't see, that accommodates a 9-volt battery, because a lot of them have a battery pack that takes either little AA batteries or AAA batteries or some such. I like to go for the eyes that have 9-volt, because you can get 9-volt battery eliminators, which means you can plug them in and have that mask lighted up for a long time, because you can plug it into a wall outlet. Here we go. Now let's see if we plug that in. Yeah, look at that. See, just plug that in. And now, if I was having Horror Hotel tonight, or a haunted attraction, or a haunted event of some sort, I could have this guy standing there with these glowing eyes. And this was not expensive. It's just 2 little LEDs stuck in there to be spooky. And you know, you could use ones that change color. You could use ones that flash on and off, flicker, whatever. But this is how I painted him. You can see he was originally sculpted with a neck, although I don't think I ever saw one for sale with that full neck on there. I've only ever seen copies that were just, that had only, such as I've been showing you here. But there's how cool Sewage can look. And again, to that friend, thank you for the raw sewage. Can you wear this mask? You can't wear this one because it's a super thick casting, and I didn't cut you know, breathing or vision holes in it, so you can't wear this one. Can you wear this one? Yeah, if you have a smallish head, if you don't have too big a head, you can wear a traditional down post size Sewage, although they run a little on the small side. I'm not going to try it on right now because I just don't want to stick my head in sewage. But anyway, there's some of the things you can do with a downpost Sewage mask to make him a little more spectacular. And again, this guy has been super popular. In fact, I guess a lot of collectors choose him as their favorite downpost original, which is to say non-movie related. And as you can see, Laura gave this one. I should turn him all the way around here, huh? Yeah, did you see the back? The back looks like the back of a mask. Isn't that exciting? Laura gave him thin, clumpy, gray hair that's a little wispy and makes him look like a good ghost or zombie kind of thing. And well, if I was having Horror Hotel this year, you just know this guy would be somewhere off in the distance, lurking around, staring at people and scaring at people. And that about wraps it up for now. To put it in mummy terms, he'd make a pretty good mummy too. You know, if you put him in a mummy suit, a few bandages over the bed, sure. That's all we got to say for now, so let's get out of here before anything else having to do with sewage happens. And I'll see you guys, well, I hope, next week.